What your eye color secretly reveals about your soul's purpose. Vertical bar. Carl Jung. They say the eyes are the window to the soul. But what if your eye color wasn't just biology? What if it was a message, a secret written in light, revealing why your soul came to this world? Carl Jung believed nothing about you is accidental. Every shade, every reflection, every gaze is your unconscious speaking. In this video, we'll go far beyond genetics into the hidden language of your eyes and decode what your soul's mission truly is. Part 1. The symbolism of eye color in Jungian psychology. Carl Jung often emphasized that what is visible to the eye is never merely physical. It is a projection of psychic energy. When we look into someone's eyes, we are not simply perceiving the color of their iris. We are encountering the symbolic language of their unconscious. The eyes are the portal between the inner and outer worlds where the soul meets matter. To Jung, color itself carried archetypal meaning, a reflection of the psychic function it represents. The tone, hue, and depth of color embody the spectrum of human consciousness, from light that symbolizes spiritual ascent to shadow that symbolizes descent into the unconscious. The eye as a mirror of the psyche. Jung considered the human eye a powerful metaphor for the self, the totality of conscious and unconscious elements in an individual. The iris, unique to each person, can be viewed as a mandala, a circular pattern symbolizing wholeness. In many cultures, eyes are believed to reveal truth, but from a Jungian standpoint, they reveal not factual truth, but psychological truth. When you gaze into someone's eyes, you are confronted with their archetypal essence, whether it is the lover, the sage, the healer, or the warrior. The eyes unconsciously communicate how much light and shadow a person has integrated. Jung once said, "The eyes of others are our mirrors. Through them we discover our soul." The light in one's eyes is therefore the symbolic expression of psychic energy in balance. Archetypal meaning of color. In Jung's analytical psychology, color represents the vibration of psychic energy. Just as dreams use color symbolically, red for passion or aggression, blue for transcendence, black for mystery, the eyes too carry archetypal significance. Each eye color becomes a metaphor for a particular psychic orientation. 1. Blue eyes. The visionary spirit blue symbolizes the element of air and the realm of spirit. Individuals with blue eyes often radiate clarity, curiosity, and the drive to explore invisible realities. They represent the archetype of the seeker or the visionary. Jung would say these people are naturally oriented toward the spiritual function of consciousness, the search for truth, transcendence, and intellectual illumination. Psychologically, blue-eyed individuals may struggle between detachment and intimacy. Their light-oriented energy can draw them toward idealism, philosophy, or the exploration of metaphysical truth, yet it can also make them prone to emotional distance. The depth of their gaze reflects an unconscious longing for the divine, for order beyond chaos. The blue iris can thus be read as a symbol of the soul's aspiration to rise above instinct into the realm of logos, the rational spiritual mind. In dream symbolism, blue appears when the psyche calls for serenity, understanding, or forgiveness. Likewise, blue-eyed individuals often embody that inner quest. Jung might have interpreted this as a soul mission of awakening consciousness, of bringing clarity into the collective shadow. 2. Brown eyes. The healer of the earth. Brown is the color of soil roots and nourishment, the archetype of the Earth Mother. People with brown or dark eyes tend to embody grounding, loyalty, and empathy. They often carry the unconscious task of stabilizing others and channeling emotional healing. In Jungian terms, they live close to the instinctual psyche, the part of the unconscious connected to nature, ancestors, and the body. Jung saw the instinctual realm as sacred because it roots us in the collective unconscious. Brown-eyed individuals often radiate warmth and reliability because they hold a strong connection with this primal energy. However, their challenge lies in carrying the weight of others' emotions. They are the absorbers of pain, the silent witnesses to the world's suffering. Their eyes seem to say, "I understand your shadow because I have carried mine." Their sole mission is to balance matter and spirit, to remind humanity that light must have roots in darkness. For Jung, the color brown symbolized integration, where the material and spiritual meet. These individuals often find purpose in healing professions, family guidance, or creative work that reconnects others with authenticity and compassion. 3. Green or hazel eyes. The alchemist of transformation, green and hazel eyes represent transition, the blending of the earthly and the ethereal. Jung would interpret this as the archetype of the healer, the magician, or the transformer. Green embodies the principle of growth, healing, and renewal. Psychologically, green-eyed individuals reflect adaptability. Their souls are alchemical. They know how to turn pain into wisdom. Jung would have seen them as mediators between opposites, logic and emotion, light and shadow, masculine and feminine. Their gaze is often magnetic, carrying both serenity and intensity, suggesting a deep understanding of life's paradoxes. In the symbolism of the psyche, green emerges during psychological healing. It appears in dreams after a long period of suffering when renewal begins. Those with green or hazel eyes often carry a similar collective function. They inspire rebirth, reconciliation, and change in others. Yet transformation always demands confrontation with the unconscious. For them, the danger is to become consumed by others' chaos while trying to heal it. Jung might describe their journey as one of holding tension between opposites until something higher, the self, emerges. Their life purpose involves teaching that true healing occurs not by escaping darkness, but by integrating it. 4. Gray or black eyes. The guardians of the shadow, gray and black, are the colors of mystery, depth, and power. Those who carry them often embody the archetype of the seer or the shadow bearer. Jung believed that shadow work, the process of confronting the repressed aspects of the psyche, was the foundation of individuation. Individuals with very dark or gray eyes are naturally drawn to what lies beneath the surface. Their gaze is often penetrating, almost otherworldly, as though they can perceive the unconscious motives of others. Jung might have seen them as carriers of psychic depth, the kind of people who bring light into darkness through understanding rather than denial. In mythic language, gray represents neutrality, the liminal space between black and white. These individuals often operate between worlds, the visible and invisible, the rational and the irrational. Their soul's mission involves guiding others through transformation, acting as bridges between consciousness and the deep unconscious. However, this depth comes with isolation. They may feel misunderstood or feared because their energy exposes hidden truths. Jung would interpret their life path as that of the psychopomp, a guide of souls who walks the fine line between light and shadow, helping others to integrate what they fear. Color as expression of psychic energy. In Jungian terms, the eyes function as symbols of the psychic organ of perception. Just as dreams are the eyes of the unconscious, the physical eyes reveal where a person's energy flows. Mysteriously, color becomes the vehicle through which the unconscious makes itself visible. Jung associated colors with psychological functions. Yellow and blue correspond to consciousness and intuition. Red and black signify instinct and the chthonic powers of the unconscious. Green and brown symbolize balance and healing. Therefore, the eye's coloration is a subtle metaphor for the psyche's current orientation, whether towards spirit, matter, transformation, or depth. To Jung, no physical trait is accidental. Every visible feature symbolizes an archetypal process occurring within the individual. The eye as a mandala of the self. When Jung explored the symbolism of mandalas, he observed that many spontaneous drawings from patients contained circular patterns similar to an iris. The eye in its roundness mirrors the self, the organizing center of the psyche. In this way, every pair of eyes can be read as a sacred geometry of consciousness, showing how the soul reflects divine order through human form. The pupil, dark and mysterious, represents the center of awareness, the point where consciousness meets the unknown. The surrounding color forms the aura of the soul's energy. The shifting shades within an iris, flecks of light, rings, or shadows, indicate the dynamic interplay between consciousness and the unconscious. To look into someone's eyes, therefore, is to witness the living movement of psychic integration. Jung might have said that just as the mandala expresses wholeness through art, the eye expresses wholeness through being. Its symmetry and radiance reveal whether a person's inner world is fragmented or united. The collective meaning of eyes in myth and culture across civilizations. Eyes are depicted as divine instruments of perception. The eye of Horus in Egypt symbolizes protection and wisdom. In Christianity, the all-seeing eye represents divine consciousness. In Buddhism, the third eye denotes enlightenment. Jung would have interpreted these not as religious artifacts, but as expressions of the collective unconscious, the universal human intuition that vision equates to awareness. From this lens, eye color participates in that universal symbolism. The color of one's eyes reflects how the soul perceives and interprets the world. It is not about aesthetic beauty, but about psychological resonance. Blue mirrors transcendence. Brown embodies compassion. Green reveals transformation. Gray guards mystery. In mythic psychology, these distinctions correspond to elemental forces within the psyche: air blue spirit and reason, earth brown body and grounding, water green divided by hazel emotion and healing, shadow gray divided by black mystery and transformation. To Jung, the individuation process requires balancing all four elements. Thus, regardless of one's physical eye color, the deeper meaning lies in integrating every archetypal hue within one's psyche, learning to see through every shade of the soul. The psychological function of seeing Jung taught that perception is not passive, it is an act of creation. What we see is shaped by our inner state. Therefore, the eyes do not simply register reality, they reveal the relationship between the observer and the observed. The world we perceive through our eyes is in part a projection of the unconscious. People often notice that when their emotional state changes, their eyes seem to reflect a different light. This is not illusion, but symbolic correspondence. The eyes alter because psychic energy flows differently. For Jung, psychic energy libido is not sexual in a narrow sense, but the universal life force. When the libido moves toward consciousness, the eyes appear bright and lucid. When it retreats into the unconscious, they seem clouded or heavy. He would likely argue that the soul's mission involves learning to see in the truest sense, to perceive reality without projection, without distortion from complexes. The eyes then symbolize the evolution of perception itself, from egoic seeing based on fear and desire to soul, seeing based on understanding and compassion. Light and shadow, reflected in the iris. Every color of the eye contains both light and darkness. Blue can turn icy and detached. Brown can become possessive or overly self-sacrificing. Green can envy. Black can intimidate. These are not flaws, but the shadow aspects of each archetype. Jung's psychology always reminds us that wholeness requires embracing opposites. Thus, the meaning of eye color is not a fixed destiny, but a mirror of potential integration. The soul's mission is to bring consciousness to the qualities that the color represents. For instance, the blue-eyed visionary must descend into emotion, the brown-eyed healer must learn boundaries, the green-eyed alchemist must face chaos without control, the gray-eyed seer must share their wisdom with compassion. Each eye color becomes a symbolic assignment, a lesson written in pigment. Seeing beyond the physical for Jung, vision was the highest form of symbolic function because it bridges matter and meaning. In mystical experiences, he described visions not as hallucinations, but as manifestations of the psyche striving for balance. The same principle applies to the eyes themselves. They are symbols of consciousness incarnated in flesh. When the eyes sparkle, it is the soul's energy in motion. When they dim, it reflects psychic fatigue or repression. The eyes tell stories beyond words. Jung would say that to truly see another person is to encounter their archetype, to perceive not what they appear to be, but what they are becoming. In summary of the symbolic layer, Part 1 reveals that eye color is more than a genetic trait. It is a projection of the inner cosmos. Each shade corresponds to a psychic vibration and a soul orientation, echoing the archetypes and elements that shape our individuation process. The symbolism of color in Jungian thought invites us to look beyond appearance and into essence. When you understand what your eye color represents symbolically, you begin to understand the mission your soul has chosen. Because as Jung wrote, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Part 2. The soul's mission behind your eye color. Carl Jung's Depth Psychology. Explained. Carl Jung believed that the human being is not merely a biological organism, but a spiritual phenomenon in constant dialogue with the unconscious. Every visible trait, from the tone of your voice to the color of your eyes, symbolizes something that your psyche is trying to communicate to consciousness. From this perspective, the color of your eyes is not a coincidence. It reflects the archetypal energy your soul carries into this life. Your soul's mission is to integrate, express, and ultimately transcend that energy. In Jungian psychology, the path of individuation, the process of becoming whole, is guided by symbols that the unconscious reveals. Eye color in this sense is a living symbol, an expression of the way your soul intends to perceive, interact, and heal the world. The soul's blueprint, hidden in color. To Jung, each individual carries what he called a psychic blueprint, a kind of energetic signature that encodes the lessons and purposes of one's life. It is neither predetermined fate nor random chance. Rather, it is the pattern through which the self, the totality of the psyche, seeks to manifest itself in the physical world. Eye color acts as a metaphorical key to this blueprint. It hints at the energy your soul radiates and the kind of transformation it came here to pursue. Blue eyes suggest a mission of illumination. Brown eyes, a mission of healing. Green eyes, a mission of renewal. Gray or black eyes, a mission of shadow integration. These are not categories of personality, but archetypal functions, universal patterns that express through you in unique form. Jung often warned that people lose themselves when they ignore symbolic meaning. In the Archetypes and the collective unconscious, he wrote that the soul speaks in images. The eye, being both organ and symbol of sight, becomes a direct expression of the soul's language. The unconscious speaks through it, not in words but in light. The mandala of your soul mission. The iris, circular and radiating from a central point, mirrors the mandala, one of Jung's most profound discoveries. In his clinical work, Jung observed that patients unconsciously drew mandalas during moments of psychic transformation when chaos was being reorganized into wholeness. He recognized that the mandala symbolized the self, the inner center that harmonizes all opposites. Similarly, the iris radiates from a dark pupil, the unknown, into the colored field, the known. This pattern encapsulates the spiritual journey itself, from unconscious darkness toward conscious color. Therefore, the color of your eyes can be seen as the dominant tone of your mandala. It represents the energy through which your soul interacts with the outer world to complete its inner evolution. Blue eyes, the mission of light. Those with blue eyes embody a calling toward illumination. They often feel drawn to truth, wisdom, and clarity. Their mission is to awaken awareness not only in themselves but also in others. Jung would identify this as a movement from darkness to logos, from instinct to spirit. However, the danger of this mission lies in excessive detachment. Blue-eyed individuals may intellectualize emotion or mistake understanding for integration. Their true work is to unite the clarity of mind with the warmth of the heart. When they succeed, they become guides of consciousness, people who inspire through insight and authenticity. Their presence often brings calm to chaos. They unconsciously transmit serenity because their soul's task is to show that enlightenment is not an escape from reality, but a deeper acceptance of it. Brown eyes, the mission of healing. People with brown eyes carry the earth archetype, which Jung associated with grounding and nurturance. Their mission is to bring compassion into a fractured world. They often feel a deep sense of responsibility for others, an urge to heal emotional wounds, sometimes at the cost of their own energy. Jung would call this the instinctual healer, one whose wisdom arises from the body, not the intellect. These individuals have the ability to absorb pain and transmute it into empathy. The warmth in their eyes symbolizes the fire of transformation that burns gently, not destructively. Yet this mission can turn into martyrdom if not balanced. The brown-eyed healer must learn to distinguish between helping and rescuing. Their spiritual path is about boundaries, understanding that one cannot save another without first saving oneself. When they master this, their presence becomes restorative, reminding others that true healing occurs when love meets strength. Green or hazel eyes, the mission of transformation. Green or hazel eyes represent a transitional energy, the alchemy between earth and air, instinct and intuition. These individuals are born mediators between worlds, between emotion and reason, body and soul, chaos and harmony. Jung described the archetype of the alchemist as one who turns lead into gold, symbolizing the transformation of shadow into consciousness. People with green or hazel eyes live this process intuitively. They are drawn to evolution, change, and inner growth. Their soul's mission is to teach that nothing is ever lost, everything can be transformed. But transformation demands confrontation. These individuals often experience intense emotional cycles, mirroring the death and rebirth rhythm of psychic renewal. Jung might say their life path involves holding the tension of opposites until synthesis occurs. In relationships and creativity, they reflect this balance, guiding others toward integration. Their eyes, often shifting color under light, symbolize adaptability, the ability of the psyche to adjust, learn, and heal continuously. They are the living embodiment of renewal. Gray or black eyes, the mission of depth and shadow. Those with gray or black eyes carry the archetype of the seer, the one who perceives beyond appearances. Jung saw such individuals as initiates into the shadow realm where unconscious truths dwell. Their soul's mission is to confront fear, illusion, and taboo, bringing hidden material into light. The darkness of their eyes symbolizes not evil but potential, the unmanifested depth of the unconscious. They are often intuitive, analytical, and psychologically perceptive. People may feel exposed under their gaze because it penetrates facades. Jung would associate this with the function of seeing through, a quality of advanced individuation. However, this mission carries isolation. To navigate darkness without losing one's light requires spiritual discipline. The gray-eyed seer must learn to translate depth into wisdom, not cynicism. When balanced, they become truth-tellers, guides, who help others face their own shadows and find empowerment in authenticity. The dance between fate and free will. Jung never supported deterministic thinking. While archetypes shape us, they do not imprison us. Eye color may hint at the archetypal current flowing through your life, but your conscious engagement determines its expression. If your soul carries the frequency of illumination, you may choose whether to use it to inspire or to control. If it carries the energy of healing, you decide whether to empower or to absorb. Jung's idea of individuation insists that the soul's mission is not fulfilled by identifying with the archetype, but by transcending it through awareness. For example, the blue-eyed visionary must learn empathy. The brown-eyed healer must learn detachment. The green-eyed alchemist must embrace stability. The gray-eyed seer must find community. Your mission, therefore, is not the color itself, but the integration of its symbolic lesson. The eyes as instruments of the self. Jung described the self as the organizing principle of the psyche, an inner intelligence that orchestrates experiences for the sake of wholeness. It communicates through symbols, dreams, synchronicities, and yes, physical attributes. The eyes are among its favorite instruments because they are the bridge between vision and consciousness. The way you perceive the world determines the way you live within it. If your eyes radiate compassion, you draw healing experiences. If they reflect curiosity, you attract knowledge. Jung would call this psychological reciprocity, the psyche's tendency to create external conditions that mirror internal attitudes. Hence, your eye color is not a passive trait but a living dialogue between your inner and outer worlds. It shapes how others perceive you and how you perceive them, subtly guiding your interactions toward the fulfillment of your soul's design. The mission of seeing. To see in the Jungian sense means to become conscious. The soul's mission, regardless of color, is to open the eyes of understanding. Every shade of iris is an aspect of divine perception attempting to know itself through human form. Blue teaches the clarity of spirit. Brown teaches the compassion of the heart. Green teaches the transformation of life. Gray teaches the depth of truth. Your task is to embody these lessons until seeing becomes insight and perception becomes love. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The eyes, through their color and light, constantly reveal what part of you is still unconscious. When you learn to read them symbolically, you align with your soul's mission, transforming blind destiny into conscious purpose. The alchemy of vision and purpose. In Jungian alchemy, the soul evolves through stages symbolized by color blackening, nigredo, whitening albedo, yellowing citrinitas, and reddening rubedo. Each stage reflects psychological transformation. Interestingly, these same hues appear in the spectrum of human eyes, as though nature encoded the soul's alchemical journey within us. Dark eyes represent nigredo, facing the shadow. Blue eyes correspond to albedo, illumination and purification. Hazel or green eyes resemble citrinitas, integration and renewal. Amber or reddish tones evoke rubedo, the embodiment of the self in life. Thus, your eye color mirrors the alchemical stage your soul resonates with. It is the hue of your current work in the laboratory of consciousness. Your mission is to continue this inner alchemy until all colors are unified in light, awakening to your soul's purpose. Ultimately, Jung would remind us that purpose is not found, it is revealed through self-awareness. The eyes are not predictors of destiny, but reflections of the energy you carry to transform destiny into consciousness. To fulfill your soul's mission means to live authentically, to let your perception evolve from the surface to the essence. When you understand the symbolic meaning behind your eyes, you begin to live not from ego but from the self, the divine center that sees through all illusion. And so every time you look into your own eyes in the mirror, remember what you see is not just color. It is your soul's vibration, the pattern of your mission, the echo of your archetypal calling. As Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Part 3. How the unconscious shapes your soul's purpose. Carl Jung's Depth Psychology. Analysis. Carl Jung believed that everything visible in our lives, the way we act, the choices we make, the emotions we carry, and even the color of our eyes, emerges from invisible origins within the unconscious. The unconscious in Jung's theory is not merely a repository of forgotten memories. It is a living, intelligent force that guides the development of the self and reveals the unique mission of the soul through symbols, dreams, synchronicities, and the language of archetypes. Your soul's purpose, therefore, is not something you invent. It is something you remember. It has been speaking to you since birth, reflected in your instincts, your fears, your passions, and even in the gaze you carry. The unconscious as the architect of destiny. Jung described the unconscious as the matrix of creation, a vast psychic field from which both individual and collective experiences arise. Every human carries two layers of unconsciousness. One, the personal unconscious, containing memories, traumas, and complexes unique to the individual. Two, the collective unconscious, a deeper layer shared by all humanity containing archetypes, universal symbols, and energies that shape thought, emotion, and destiny. Eye color from this symbolic lens represents the collective archetype that your soul resonates with. It expresses the dominant frequency of energy you carry, whether it be visionary, light blue, healing stability, brown transformative balance, green divided by hazel, or intuitive depth, gray divided by black. But here's the paradox Jung explored: although your unconscious shapes your external world, you are not its victim. Your task is to make the unconscious conscious, to recognize its messages, confront its shadows, and participate in your own becoming. Your eyes in this way are instruments of that process. They both perceive and project, mirroring what you have yet to acknowledge within. When Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate," he was describing exactly this, the unseen forces within you creating your outer story. Projection, how we see the world through the eyes of the psyche. The eyes are not passive receivers, they are creative projectors. What you see in others is often what you cannot yet see in yourself. Jung called this phenomenon projection, the act of unconsciously transferring internal qualities onto the external world. When you admire someone's courage, you are perceiving a part of your own potential that is still dormant. When you are triggered by another's arrogance or weakness, you are encountering an unintegrated fragment of your shadow. From a symbolic perspective, eye color reveals the style of your projection. Blue-eyed individuals project ideals, searching for purity and truth outside themselves. Brown-eyed individuals project emotions, often seeing others as wounded or in need of care. Green-eyed individuals project transformation, finding chaos and change mirrored everywhere. Gray or black-eyed individuals project mystery, encountering secrets, betrayals, or profound insights in others. The unconscious uses projection to lead you back to yourself. Everything you perceive through your eyes is ultimately a message about your own inner state. Your soul's mission is to decode this symbolic language, to stop blaming or idolizing the outside world, and instead recognize the mirror it provides. The shadow, the hidden force behind your mission. At the core of Jung's psychology is the shadow, the part of the psyche that contains all that the ego refuses to acknowledge. It holds not only our repressed fears and desires, but also immense creative energy. Jung wrote, "The shadow is 90% pure gold. That means your soul's purpose often hides precisely where you resist looking." The color of your eyes, especially when dark, reminds you of this truth. To see clearly, you must look into darkness. The blue-eyed visionary must confront emotional detachment and fear of imperfection. The brown-eyed healer must face resentment and self-sacrifice. The green-eyed alchemist must confront instability and envy of others' peace. The gray-eyed seer must face cynicism and emotional isolation. When these shadows are integrated, the energy that once caused suffering becomes a source of power. Your mission then transforms from survival to service. You begin to use your unique energy not to escape life, but to illuminate it. Archetypes and the soul's direction. Jung identified numerous archetypes, universal psychological patterns that govern behavior and meaning. Every soul's mission resonates with one or more of these. The eyes often reveal which archetype dominates your current stage of life. The visionary blue eyes. The visionary archetype seeks transcendence, knowledge, and clarity. This person's soul mission is to awaken higher consciousness in themselves and others. The challenge lies in descending back to the heart, integrating emotion with wisdom. The healer brown eyes. The healer archetype is grounded in compassion and endurance. Their eyes reflect warmth because they carry the soul's task of restoration. Their challenge is to avoid over-identifying with suffering and to transform empathy into empowerment. The alchemist green divided by hazel eyes. The alchemist archetype is dynamic, experimental, and deeply transformative. Their purpose is to bridge opposites and turn emotional chaos into creative expression. Their task is to maintain balance while navigating extremes. The seer gray, divided by black eyes. The seer archetype dwells in mystery and seeks truth beneath illusion. Their mission is to expose what others deny and bring wisdom out of darkness. Their challenge is to remain compassionate, not detached, while revealing uncomfortable truths. These archetypes are not fixed identities, they evolve as your consciousness evolves. Your eye color simply indicates the entry point of your spiritual journey, not its limit. Individuation. From projection to integration. Jung's process of individuation is the gradual awakening of the self, the union of conscious and unconscious light and shadow, masculine and feminine, heaven and earth. The eyes are the instruments through which this process is both seen and lived. In the early stages of individuation, the ego identifies with appearance. I am this color, this personality, this story. But as you descend into the unconscious, you begin to recognize that the color of your eyes is symbolic of something eternal. You are not just the seer, you are also the seen. This shift transforms vision itself. You begin to perceive the world not as random but as meaningful, each encounter a mirror of inner development. Your relationships, your struggles, even the way light reflects in your eyes all reveal the stage of consciousness you are navigating. Individuation turns ordinary seeing into sacred seeing. The eyes no longer divide, they unify. You start to perceive the invisible threads that connect everything, the synchronicities Jung called meaningful coincidences. The language of light, how the eyes communicate the soul. In every photograph, in every gaze, there is light, subtle, flickering, alive. Jung would interpret this light not just as physics, but as psychic luminosity, an outward sign of inner vitality. When your consciousness expands, your eyes often seem brighter, clearer, more radiant. This is not imagination. The body responds to psyche. When the soul aligns with its mission, energy flows freely. The eyes reflect coherence. Conversely, when you live in contradiction to your inner truth, your gaze dulls. The unconscious withdraws its light, signaling that the soul's mission has been neglected. Light in the eyes is therefore a kind of spiritual feedback loop. It reveals how connected you are to your purpose. Blue eyes that glow with calm awareness show the visionary has balanced intellect and empathy. Brown eyes that shine warmly show the healer has embraced boundaries and strength. Green eyes that sparkle with curiosity show the alchemist has mastered emotional equilibrium. Dark eyes that glimmer like midnight stars show the seer has embraced the shadow without losing hope. Dream symbols and the inner vision. Jung taught that dreams are the eyes of the unconscious. They compensate for what the waking mind refuses to see. If your eyes represent how you perceive the outer world, your dreams represent how your soul perceives the inner one. Often people dream of eyes watching, crying, glowing, or blinded. These images are not random. They reveal how clearly your soul is seeing. Dreams of blurred vision may reflect denial. Dreams of luminous eyes suggest awakening. Jung believed such symbols invite you to open the inner eye, the vision of the self that transcends ego perception. In this sense, your soul's mission is to awaken both forms of sight, the physical eyes that perceive form and the inner eyes that perceive meaning. When both are aligned, you experience synchronicity, the feeling that the universe is communicating directly with you. The alchemy between the eyes and the unconscious. Jung often described the psyche's transformation as psychic alchemy, the process of turning unconscious lead into conscious gold. The eyes participate in this alchemy every moment you dare to see truthfully. When you face your fear, the dark pupil symbol of the unknown contracts, allowing more light to enter. Metaphorically, this means that consciousness expands when courage replaces avoidance. The iris, colored by your archetype, becomes the vessel through which light is transformed into awareness. In alchemy, each color represents a stage of transformation. Black nigredo, confrontation with shadow. White albedo, illumination and purification. Yellow citrinitas, integration and clarity. Red rubido, embodiment of wholeness. Your soul's mission moves through these colors, and the eyes become symbols of that journey. Every gaze, every moment of recognition, every tear is part of the alchemical process of becoming whole. The mirror effect, how others reflect your soul's growth. One of Jung's most profound insights was that relationships serve as mirrors for individuation. You attract people who reflect your unconscious contents, both light and shadow. The kind of eyes that draw your attention often symbolize the energy your soul is trying to integrate. If you are captivated by bright blue eyes, perhaps your soul longs for clarity and spiritual connection. If you feel drawn to dark, mysterious eyes, you may be called to explore your own hidden depths. If you are comforted by warm brown eyes, your soul may seek grounding and emotional security. These attractions are not superficial. They are archetypal signals guiding your evolution. Jung would say the unconscious uses beauty and fascination to awaken forgotten parts of the psyche. Every encounter with another's eyes is a reminder of the unity of all souls within the collective unconscious. The self as the ultimate vision. The journey of the soul, according to Jung, culminates in the realization of the self, the divine core that transcends all opposites. When you reach this stage, your perception changes completely. You no longer see through the filters of ego, trauma, or archetype. You see with wholeness. In this state, eye color loses its literal meaning. It becomes transparent like clear light. The blue of the visionary, the brown of the healer, the green of the alchemist, the gray of the seer, all dissolve into one radiant awareness. This is the unus mundus. Jung spoke of the one world where inner and outer are no longer separate. Here the eyes no longer just look, they know. The gaze becomes compassion itself. The soul's mission is fulfilled not by achieving something, but by remembering its unity with all life. Living with conscious sight. To live your soul's purpose in Jungian terms means to see consciously. It means to recognize your projections, embrace your shadow, and follow the symbols that emerge from your inner world. Your eyes are the sacred tools through which this transformation unfolds. Every color, every shade, every flicker of light within them tells a story about your relationship to the unconscious. The more you honor that story, the more radiant your gaze becomes, because you are no longer merely seeing the world. You are participating in its evolution. In the end, Jung's message remains timeless. The soul would have no rainbow if the eyes had no tears. Each tear, each vision, each reflection is part of the soul's journey, from blindness to sight, from fragmentation to wholeness. Your eyes are not just organs of sight, they are symbols of the divine longing to know itself through you. Part 4. Awakening your inner vision, the true purpose of seeing. In Carl Jung's Analytical psychology, the act of seeing extends far beyond the physical function of the eyes. For Jung, vision is a metaphor for consciousness itself. To truly see is to awaken, to recognize the patterns of the unconscious shaping our lives, and to perceive the sacred meaning beneath ordinary appearances. The eyes therefore symbolize the bridge between matter and spirit, between perception and realization. In this final layer of analysis, we explore how awakening your inner vision reveals your soul's deepest mission and aligns you with the evolutionary process of individuation. The eye that sees within. Jung often spoke about the difference between looking and seeing. To look is to observe the external world through the lens of ego, filtering reality through judgments, fears, and desires. To see, however, is to perceive from the self, the center of wholeness that integrates both light and shadow. When you look into another person's eyes, what you see is not merely their physical expression, but a mirror of your own psychic reality. This recognition, the spark of connection between two souls, is the first step toward awakening inner vision. Jung described such moments as numinous, filled with spiritual power that transcends reason. They are glimpses of the self revealing itself through another being. To awaken the inner eye means to shift perception from form to essence, from judgment to understanding. You begin to notice not what people do, but what moves them. You stop seeing events as accidents and start seeing them as messages from the unconscious. The ego's blindness versus the soul's vision. The ego in Jungian terms is the small center of consciousness that identifies with persona, the mask we wear to adapt to society. It looks outward, but is blind to the inner world. The soul, by contrast, is rooted in the unconscious. It sees in symbols, not in literal facts. When life becomes painful or confusing, the ego interprets it as failure, but the soul perceives initiation. The suffering that blinds the ego often opens the eyes of the soul. Jung noted that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Every crisis forces us to look again, to question what we thought we saw. Awakening your inner vision means surrendering egoic certainty. It means learning to interpret darkness not as the absence of light, but as the womb of transformation. This shift of perception is the foundation of individuation, the process by which the unconscious becomes conscious and the self becomes whole. Seeing with the symbolic mind, the unconscious communicates through symbols, and symbols are the language of vision. Jung's patients often describe dreams filled with luminous eyes, glowing colors, or beings who could see through them. These images represented the psyche's attempt to awaken awareness, to teach them to see symbolically rather than literally. In everyday life, this means perceiving meaning where others see coincidence. A stranger's gaze, a repeating color, a sudden emotion, all become messages from the deeper self. The eyes function as both receivers and transmitters of these messages. For instance, when your eyes are drawn repeatedly to a specific color, the unconscious may be calling your attention to an archetypal quality you must integrate. When you notice eyes that captivate or unsettle you, it may signify an aspect of your own soul seeking recognition. Jung called this the symbolic attitude, a mode of perception that bridges the conscious mind and the unconscious world. It is through this way of seeing that the soul's mission becomes visible, the inner light consciousness as illumination. In Jung's alchemical writings, light symbolizes consciousness, the divine spark within matter. Every act of awareness adds light to the darkness of the unconscious. The more light we bring, the more the world transforms in our perception. The eyes, being instruments of light, are sacred tools for this alchemy. When you open your eyes in the morning, you do more than witness the world. You participate in the cosmic act of creation, the meeting of light and awareness. This daily ritual reflects the deeper mystery of the psyche. Consciousness itself is the universe seeing through you. Jung once wrote that the gods have become diseases, meaning that the sacred powers once experienced as external deities now manifest as internal psychological forces. The light that once shone in myth now burns in the human soul. When you awaken your inner vision, you resurrect that divine awareness, allowing the sacred to see through your eyes once more. The shadow of perception. But every light casts a shadow. Jung warned that the more we awaken consciousness, the more we must face the darkness within ourselves. The awakened eye sees not only beauty but also brokenness. This is not failure. It is wholeness. To see the world spiritually means to hold both tragedy and transcendence in one gaze. You begin to understand that suffering itself has purpose. It calls you inward, asking you to embody compassion rather than illusion. Jung described this as holding the tension of opposites. The awakened eye does not choose light over darkness. It recognizes their interdependence. The shadow once feared becomes a teacher. It shows you where love has not yet reached. The moment you see your own darkness without denial, your inner vision expands. You no longer fear what you see in others because you have faced it within yourself. The mirror of divine perception. Jung's concept of the self resembles the mystical idea of divine awareness, the consciousness that perceives through all beings. When your perception shifts from ego to self, you begin to experience life as a mirror of that greater awareness. In this state, every gaze exchanged between people becomes sacred. The eyes become vessels of grace. You no longer see separation. You see reflection. You realize that the same light, shining in your eyes, shines in everyone else's. This recognition is not sentimental. It is transformative. It dissolves projection, judgment, and comparison. It heals loneliness because you finally see that you were never truly separate. The universe has been looking back at you all along. Practices for awakening the inner vision. Jung believed that transformation required not just intellect but experience. To awaken your inner vision, you must practice seeing. 1. Mirror gazing. Look into your own eyes in the mirror, not as a critic, but as an observer. Do not focus on appearance. Focus on the energy behind your gaze. Ask, what emotion lives in my eyes today? What is my soul trying to communicate through them? 2. Active imagination. Jung's method of dialoguing with the unconscious can also be applied visually. Close your eyes and imagine a light within your heart, rising to meet the light in your eyes. Observe what images or emotions arise. This practice aligns the inner vision soul with outer perception ego. 3. Dream reflection record. Dreams involving eyes, light, or color. These are direct messages from the unconscious about how your perception is evolving. Reflect on what kind of seeing your psyche is encouraging. 4. Contemplative observation. Spend time each day looking at the world without labeling it. Observe colors, textures, movements. This stillness dissolves projection and allows pure perception to emerge. You begin to see reality without distortion, a glimpse of the self perceiving through you. From seeing to knowing. As your perception deepens, seeing becomes knowing. You begin to experience what Jung called gnosis, a direct inner knowledge of truth that cannot be taught or borrowed. It arises from union with the self. This knowing transforms fear into curiosity, confusion into wonder. You realize that the world is alive with meaning, and that every perception is part of your dialogue with the divine. In this awakened state, the color of your eyes becomes less important than the light behind them. Whether blue or brown, green or gray, your eyes radiate the same universal consciousness. You no longer see through the limitations of archetype, you see through the eternal self. The vision beyond duality. Jung believed that the final stage of individuation is the reconciliation of opposites, the union of conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, heaven and earth. When this integration occurs, perception itself transforms. You begin to see through paradox, pain and joy, life and death, love and loss. All reveal themselves as complementary expressions of one truth. The awakened eye no longer judges but understands. It sees divine order even in chaos. In mystical terms, this is enlightenment. In Jungian language, it is the realization of the self. The soul's mission is fulfilled when you see the world not as fragments but as one living organism of meaning. The gaze of the self. When Jung wrote about his own visionary experiences in the Red Book, he described encountering divine figures who looked at him with eyes of infinite understanding. He realized that they were not separate beings but reflections of the self, the part of him that already knew the truth. To awaken your inner vision is to embody that same gaze. It is to look at life through the eyes of the self, eyes that do not condemn but comprehend, that do not seek to possess but to perceive. When you look at others this way, you become a healing presence. People feel seen, not judged. You transmit the essence of individuation, conscious love. Living as the eye of the universe, Jung's deepest insight was that consciousness is the universe becoming aware of itself. When you awaken your inner vision, you realize that your eyes are not yours alone. They are instruments through which the cosmos experiences itself. The blue-eyed visionary becomes the sky seeing itself. The brown-eyed healer becomes the earth comforting itself. The green-eyed alchemist becomes life transforming itself. The gray-eyed seer becomes night understanding itself. Through your eyes, the divine learns to see its own reflection. This is the mystery at the heart of existence, that the seer and the seen are one. The sacred purpose of seeing. To awaken your inner vision is to fulfill your soul's purpose. You are here to bring awareness into form, to turn perception into revelation. Every moment you see with compassion, every time you choose understanding over judgment, you advance the evolution of consciousness itself. Jung called this process individuation, but its essence is love, love expressed as awareness. When you see through the eyes of the soul, you heal not only yourself but the collective unconscious. You restore the link between heaven and earth, between the visible and the invisible. In that sacred moment, your gaze becomes prayer, your sight becomes creation, and your eyes, whatever their color, shine with the timeless light of the self. So the next time you look in the mirror, don't just see color, see calling, because your eyes are not a coincidence. They are symbols. They tell you what the universe assigned you to become. Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And maybe awakening begins when you finally see yourself not with your eyes but with your soul.